Hello humans and welcome to the top 5 most OP tanks in World of Tanks Blitz. Starting off with number 5, that isn't really a surprise, but there might be surprises later. The Object 752, a Soviet 2-shot autoloader with 430 alpha damage, which means you can do over 800 damage in just about 3 seconds, which is pretty good. Now the only real downside to this vehicle is its 0.35 accuracy. It's not really that amazing, but it does work out just about enough. Now, for example, if you compare it to something like an M5 Yaw, it has 500 more DPM than an M5 Yaw while still having the same gun depression. However, there's one slight problem here, is that the oscillating turret of this vehicle, which is very unusual, also elevates the cupolas when you depress the guns, so you can't really hide them when you play hull down. However, you do have excellent side armor, so that's not really that big of a problem. So 860 damage in this clip, which only just means that you have to shoot like twice and then you already achieve tier 9 average damage. With 2 clips, you've got tier 9 average damage. Quite insane. And with 4, well, you're gonna be very good, and it's not really that difficult. I mean, imagine getting 4 opportunities to shoot a tank. It's not really that hard to do. So with that armor, with that autoloader, and with a not so great accuracy, but 8 degrees of gun depression, this thing is an excellent vehicle at tier 9, a tier that often does get overlooked and isn't really relevant most of the time, because you either look at tier 8 or you look at tier 10. But this vehicle might just be a tier 10, hiding in tier 9, waiting for its opportunity to catch you off guard and destroy you completely. At number 4, we have the 53TP, the greatest of these Soviet-style tier 8 heavy tanks, because it does have gun depression. You're starting to see a pattern here, aren't you? I mean, it just is an excellent vehicle, and one of the very few tech tree vehicles that performs better than a majority of the premium tanks, because remember, this vehicle also has to deal with things like stock crew and stock equipment, but it just doesn't care. This thing is a absolutely dominant vehicle in its entirety. I mean, it's got even more alpha damage than most of the other Soviet-style vehicles. It's not like a WZ-111 where it's entirely useless. This thing absolutely destroys everything that you put in front of it. It can even deal with some tier 9s if you're a competent player. Now, in this battle right here in the 53TP, I sort of went out here to the island on purpose, because that's not normally where you play a vehicle like this, but here's the thing. It can do it anyway. I mean, obviously, if you have a tiny little Italian medium tank just sitting down there waiting to get wrecked, it is obviously free damage. But even though you play this vehicle unusually and in a position where it normally doesn't belong in, it's still going to deliver. It's still going to work, because it does, again, have a well-rounded, perfect package. Now, why didn't I put the T-54E2 on here? That is a very good question. Well, it might be the greatest premium tank, but this thing, it's a tech tree tank, right? And it does lead you to the 60 TP. It's also an amazing beginner vehicle. So not only is it great at what it does, it's also obtainable for free, and it's great to start the game with. Now, if this were a purely premium list, obviously the T-4A2 would be on top. But when it comes to tier 8, there isn't really a much better and also freer package than the 53TP. That is also excellent to start the game with, and tier 8 is such a crucial, important tier, and if you make this your first tier 8, there is pretty much nothing you can do wrong. If you fail with this thing, you're gonna fail with any other tier 8 heavy tank, pretty much. So that is why the 53TP is on the list, because it is dominant while also being extremely easy to obtain and also very easy to play. It's free, it's great. 53TP might as well be currently the best tech tree tier 8 in the game. Obviously, putting 3000 DPM on a tier 6 tank destroyer that also has good armor is kind of a mistake. But then again, this is World of Tanks Blitz we're talking about. So, the Cryos is a real vehicle, and it was locked in a battle pass, which means you can't even get the damn thing anymore, and only the people that did buy that specific battle pass had access to it. I mean, getting the vehicle is much better than getting a pointless camouflage that, I mean, at least you can sell. But this thing, it was a battle pass vehicle, and there's a lot of them. But eventually Wargaming ran out and decided to replace it with pointless tier 8 camos. So they will never be back, essentially. And maybe this vehicle will also never be back in the game. But given how crazy good it is, that might actually be a good thing. Because if you have, like, 5 of these in a tier 6 battle, the rest of the players in the battle can already start backing, because there is absolutely nothing they can do, especially if they're a tiny little tier 5, because what are you going to do with your tiny little tier 5 gun that has like 7 DPM and no penetration against the vehicle that has 3000 DPM that can kill you 6 times a minute, essentially, and that you can't even pen? So whoever thought of this vehicle, well, does deserve an award. Not a good one, but they do deserve a award. And that's why the Cryos is on this list, because it's just insane to have even created this vehicle in the first place, and you can't even obtain it anymore, which is also crazy. Now, this vehicle doesn't even exist on some servers in World of Tanks Blitz. That's how rare the KV-222T beta test is, and unsurprisingly, I'm not a beta tester. How do I have it? Well, because beta test doesn't mean anything, and, well, if it makes money, it's gonna be sold. So you can probably already expect the Cryos to be back eventually. So what do you do when you want a KV-1, but you want it to be broken? Well, very simply, you take the KV-1 gun and also the KV-1 turret, which isn't really that well armored and can still be penned quite easily, and slap it onto a tier 7 hull with, well, barely any changes to the armor profile. And that is the KV-220, which is a KV-3 hull with a KV-1 turret. Now, obviously, I don't have to tell you that that is pretty insane for a tier 5, and also the KV-1's gun is already quite decent. So I don't know what was thought here. I mean, it is a great reward for beta testers to have a vehicle that is essentially unbeatable in the right hands, because, you know, if you play longer, you tend to get better. Some of us tend to get better, and I hope you are getting better as well. And I also hope that you enjoy the video. So don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying it. And this vehicle is also very enjoyable because you have a combination of factors here with the bonkers armor, the massive weight of the vehicle, which means if anyone tries to ram into you, or if you ram into someone, given your slow speed, that's not all that possible. But if you do ram yourself into someone, it is going to cause a lot of damage to them and no damage to you at all. It's here right there, which means that overall, you've got a tank here that is a tier 5, but might be one of the most broken steel clubbing vehicles of all time. Well, I mean, the Cryos has existed in the past, but as we know, the Cryos is dead. And it's been dead for a couple of years already because it doesn't have any penetration anymore, and it doesn't have any hit points, so that vehicle is essentially dead to anybody. So don't be sad about the Cryos, but instead cherish the KV-220 because it is insanely OP. Well, there is no surprise which vehicle is number 1, but there is the surprise of where's the Annihilator. Well, newsflash, it's not OP. If you can't pen tier 8s, you're fucked. So this vehicle, however, can pen tier 8s with 250mm of heat penetration on a already bonkers gun. Now, who would have thought that if you take a KV-2 and remove all of the weaknesses of a KV-2, being its accuracy and its penetration, you end up with a vehicle that is essentially able to do just that. Pen the engine deck and absolutely wreck them. Now, 960 alpha damage on the HE rounds with good HE penetration as well, and heat rounds that have 250mm of penetration, which means you can essentially penetrate anything, and if you can't even penetrate with HE, you can absolutely destroy it. Now, it does obviously have a massive heap of downsides as well. The armor is trash. It's not that fast, and it only has 6 degrees of gun depression, but all of that does not matter when one shot is essentially all you need to get 1000 damage, which is just, it's just bonkers. And 2 shots out of this vehicle, you've already done average damage. 3 shots out of this vehicle, you're doing the same average damage as the average player does in a tier 10. That is how mental this vehicle is. What others have to work for 7, 8, 9 shots, you can simply do with 1. And that is why the Smasher is still on this list, and it is still going to be the number 1 on any of a list like this. And if it isn't, well, they're just wrong. Because no matter how many downsides it does have, otherwise, it does have many, the gun is just absolutely bonkers. So if you can place this vehicle properly and use it properly, there is nobody that can stop you. The only thing that can stop a Smasher, well, is either another Smasher or a bad player playing the vehicle in a bad position. So, essentially, this thing is obviously, it's also not even going to be sold much. It's sometimes in crates, and obviously Wargaming knows that releasing this vehicle has essentially been a mistake. Just like that guy peeking, that was also a mistake. So they only put it in crates, so don't make your hopes that you're not going to get this thing.